Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 10 of Warrior Chats. I'm Baron Avi. I'm a Paragon Warrior out of Fear and I, and our episode this month is concerning the level 6 ability of Warrior Ancestral Armor.
I'm Baron A. Heraldor Dwarfsmasher, Paragon Warrior out of the Everliving Woods.
This is Sid Wolfson, Esquire, warrior from Dragon's Hollow. I'm big, slow, I do the tank thing.
And I'm Ren Kenobi, an up-and-coming warrior from Fear and I.
All right, so today we're talking about Ancestral Armor. This is our capstone ability. This is the ability that the entire class leads up to. As usual, we're going to start by reading the ability, talking through how it works, and this one's got quite a few clarifications and oddities that we'll have to go through as well. So it should be a fun episode. Now, Ancestral Armor, taken from, or the warrior entry in the rulebook, is an enchantment of the Protection School with a range of Self. Its frequency is 3 times per refresh, and it's automatically swifted without us having to actually state swift. All our incantation is may this armor protect you from all forms of harm. It requires a white enchantment strip, and the effect reads, the effects of a magic ball, projectile, or weapon which just struck armor worn by the player are ignored, even if the object would not otherwise affect the armor. The armor loses 1 point of value in the location struck. This effect will not trigger if the armor has no points left in the location struck. Ancestral Armor is not expended after use, and will continue to provide protection until removed with Dispel Magic or similar magic or abilities. Limitation. Phase Arrow and Phase Bolt interact with armor worn by the bearer as though Ancestral Armor was not present. Note, abilities that ignore armor do not trigger Ancestral Armor. So in plain language, what this means is if you get hit with an arrow for an armor-breaking effect, if you get hit with an Entangle Ball or an Ice Ball on your armor while you have Ancestral Armor up, instead of having your armor reduced by more than 1 point or having to take a 60-second stop or frozen, you just lose a point of armor in the location. This is our capstone. It's what makes the class amazing at 6th level. What are your thoughts, Sir Alder?
People aren't going to have an immediate workaround from when you start rocking it. Since it is only 3 times per refresh, and it is just a normal enchantment, I'm very conservative about using it, just because I know when I come out to a Winter's Edge field, if I'm rocking it, I may very well just get disenchanted, or they may stop targeting me. I may start getting targeted by spell balls, and it's just kind of a waste. So I kind of save it for when I really need to push into something.
Targeted by spell balls or targeted by verbals?
Spell balls, because if they can't throw the spell balls at me, they're gonna start yelling at me more.
The majority of spell balls you get to ignore if they hit your armor with Ancestral up.
Yeah, it's just a Serve Annihilation that ignores it, right?
Fear of Annihilation ignores it. A Band Ball ignores it. Although
That's
that one's pretty rare. And Phase still subjects it to armor breaking.
Yeah.
But overall, I find that where I get targeted the most with it is with it makes me a finger of death target. I get verbaled down a lot when I've got AA up.
Yeah, I still am jumping into the fray, so a lot of times when I'm using it, I'm still getting killed in melee, because I'm not that great at fighting.
And one of the downsides to Warrior is stick is kind of necessary with it, but that's one of those things that just practice and time. And unless you're me, not blowing out your shoulder helps. Ren, Sid, you guys are at or close to 6. What are your thoughts?
I want to clarify. It just makes your armor absorb points from spells that target locations. It doesn't put like a number limit on it.
It does. It's limited based on the number of points that you have.
So if you've got a mend, if somebody repairs your armor, it restores the effectiveness of that, right?
Exactly. That's part of why this combos so well with Scavenge.
Ah, I kind of hope so, because it's like, yeah, I love, because I do the tank thing, you know. I love being able to go out there and, find, you know, somebody that's just hucking spell balls and just, slow that down,
Spellball wizards don't have a whole lot of tools in their bag to deal with this. It's also really good against archers. Again, the downside is you're very vulnerable to verbals.
That hasn't really changed besides just accenting that weakness.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, you've got that added layer of protection,
I mean, I love this ability. I think we've said a couple of times that my favorite enchantment to get as a warrior is Golem, and that's because this is an extraordinary enchantment. So you can wear your AA and your Harden together, along with a magical enchantment given to you by another player. And Golem makes all enchantments worn persistent.
So your Hardened and Ancestral stay through death.
Your Harden and your Ancestral stay through death. And to my mind, keeping Ancestral up is one of the best things you can do in terms of mechanics for being a warrior.
Then your opponents have to burn high-level verbals to kill you, and you still come back with Ancestral.
Right.
And something I've noticed is we've got more guys running monster out on our field, and a lot of those monsters, or at least the ones I've been up against, they've got ice ball, fireball, lightning bolts. Uh, boy, it really does. If you know who you're running up against, it's nice.
Your big vulnerability here is verbals. This is an amazing ability, and it's not that you're any more vulnerable to verbals. You're a bit more of a target for Dispel, but that's honestly about it.
Well, that's the completion of the warrior's ability. You've now got this ability to enchant your armor with the ability to absorb, targeted magic. It just brings the whole warrior thing full circle.
And it synergizes incredibly well with Scavenge, which we've had our entire time. And circling back to Scavenge, actually, something we said in that episode was that Barkskin or Stoneskin or Ironskin were good starter enchantments if you didn't have armor yet, because they kind of let you learn how the class is played. This is the point in time where you have to have armor. It's always something that it's good to have. Ancestral makes it to where you have to have armor or physically worn armor, or you don't get the benefit of the ability. Going to the magic rules, magic armor, unless otherwise noted in the description of the enchantment, magic armor can never benefit from armor enhancement abilities or magics such as Ancestral Armor or Imbue Armor. Example, Stoneskin is naturally considered Ancestral Armor, but Barkskin cannot benefit from Ancestral Armor in any way. So, this kind of limits your enchantment usage, because you're either going to get your capstone ability, or you're going to be able to wear magic armor enchantments. Generally speaking, in my opinion, 6 points everywhere of Ancestral is way better than 1 or 2 points of magic armor. Any opinions on that, guys?
I mean, it's certainly better. I remember when I was leveling warrior originally, and I finally got to 6th level and I could use ancestral armor. I didn't have my own armor. The only armor at the field was a Gambison, which I borrowed, and I'll tell you, it wasn't that great. The only real advantage of using ancestral armor with 1 point of armor was that one hit was now stopping the magical effects. So I'd definitely say utilizing your ancestral armor with the heavier armor classes available to warrior would be is much more effective use of it.
Getting essentially 6 6 stops of entangle or an ice ball or something like that on just a chest piece alone, or even your arms, is a lot more beneficial. Makes it so you keep moving. I see the point with 6 points of armor and ancestral. It'd be better to do that.
It's not just your chest. It's everywhere. So if you're creative, you can use your limbs to take shots. It was at Crystalline Chronicles 4 several years ago. A now Paragon archer named Manheo had drawn up on me, had a pinning arrow on his string, shot the pinning arrow. As it's coming in, I open up my shield, kick my left knee up so that the arrow lands right on my knee cop. Just yell point ancestral and run him down. Poor guy didn't have a chance to realize what had happened before he was dead.
And then you scavenge that point back after you kill him.
Exactly. It's technically a neutral trade, which isn't a bad trade at all, but I was already close to full points anyway, so...
I don't know about neutral. I mean, in that exchange, you end up with one less enemy. You're definitely better off if you started.
Fair point. One less enemy, same armor, and since that was a full-on RP event, I was able to loot the body and get a few coins. Or gems, whatever we were using for currency at that event.
But yeah, it's like, you guys mentioned, having the 6, and I totally get that. It's definitely more effective. But it's like, when I started Warrior, there was this, like, little bit of an attitude about, like, if you couldn't max out your armor as a warrior, there was, like, no reason to run Warrior, But, I mean, I've never been in a situation where somebody has actually successfully pulled out a spell ball, tossed it at me, and then had another one ready to charge. I mean, they gotta dig it out, they gotta pull it out, they gotta charge it, and then they gotta huck it at you. Then they gotta hit you with it. If you've got the 1 point, you're probably gonna end up scavenging them over it.
Not knocking having low-value armor. Wear what you have, absolutely, and you're going to get value out of this ability. It's just in my experience, in kingdom level and inner kingdom level games, you're going to need those extra points. At local, even large local level, not quite as big of a deal.
I think like the thing I spent the most time trying to figure out about this ability was like the best way to cast it, you know? Because I put like this growl on everything I do, and it's a little tricky trying to do that with that particular sentence. You got to find the emphasis and just explode on it, or it just doesn't work.
Yeah, this doesn't feel like it has a good growling ability to it. You're right.
It's like the one thing you do as a warrior that's kind of tame.
And yet it is such a powerful ability. Back during V8 playtesting, True Grit didn't always remove your enchantments. So if you popped True Grit on your AA lives, you could keep it up a lot longer. And this wasn't intended to be something that you kept up the entire game. But if you can, when you do pop it, it's amazing. There have been a couple of weekend-long games where, because people didn't at the time really understand the benefits of Dispel and just how powerful that is, with Golem, I was able to keep AA up the entire weekend.
Like the whole weekend.
The whole weekend.
Can you dispel Golem?
Any enchantment can be dispelled.
Yeah, I'm surprised somebody didn't run up on that.
There was kind of a learning curve on that. So, coming from V7 to V8, enchantments became a lot more common. They're a lot cheaper to buy in V8 than they were in V7. And because of that, Dispel Magic was powerful in V7, but If there are fewer enchantments, there's less need for Dispel. The first couple of years of V8 were people trying to figure out what the meta was. At least that was within my experience.
I also kind of wonder, did they do much armor between V8 and V7? Did it increase or decrease?
Little of column A, little of column B. So the armor scale of 0 to 6 was almost identical in V7 to V8. The couple of big changes were, in V7 you didn't have a hard cap on how many bonuses you could get. I saw a couple of suits of 6-point leather armor.
Wow.
And Warrior's capstone ability in V7 was something called Armor of Quality, which bumped any armor worn up by 1 point, up to a max of 7. Not nearly as good as it sounds because of the way damage worked in older editions. The kind of big changes were within the construction rules and how you got, or how many bonuses you could get. That's about it. So we've mentioned already there are a couple of things that ignore AA. Ancestral doesn't interact with Sphere of Annihilation. Sphere, if it hits you, will just go through, kill, and curse you. Though, fun fact, because Sphere doesn't interact with your armor is still there. If you can get G released, Greater Resurrected, or you've got Golem up, or something, your armor is still at full value. Abeyance Ball likewise ignores armor, and Abeyance is probably the single nastiest CC in the game.
Oh yeah. The little green balls. Yeah, I see one of them on the field. I if I'm not carrying my large shield, I go get my large shield.
What's nice about both of those is they're non-engulfing. So, like Sid just implied, if you take the hit to him on your shield, in the case of SOA, your shield is gone, yes, but you're fine. In the case of the Abeyance Ball, caster just wasted their time, giving you the opportunity to rush up and kill him. As Rom put it, stab, stab, stab the caster.
Man, that dude was cool. Oh wait,
Yeah.
Heron.
Yeah.
I missed Heron.
No, that was a quote from Rom.
Okay, yeah, because he was the anti-caster dude.
Yep. The other things that don't interact well with AA are single-shot siege projectiles, which those aren't exactly terribly common. Most folks won't ever have to deal with that. And the 3 phase effect abilities. Now, the Phase Blade Relic we can kind of ignore because it just deals a single point of damage anyway. So instead of losing a point from AA, you lose a point normally. Whatever.
Right.
Phase Bolt and Phase Arrow, however, both still subject you to armor breaking. So what that means is if you get hit with a phase effect, Phase Bolt or Phase Arrow, and you're at 4 points or higher, you lose a point of armor like normal. No real difference there. If you're at 3 points or fewer, your armor drops to 0 in that location, despite AA being up. There's a very, very common misconception, or that Ancestral Armor gets rid of your regular armor and makes it magical. That's not true.
No. It's just another layer of enchantment.
Right. It ignores the enchantment, not the physical armor.
That was something that really helped out my game once I figured out that there was like different layers to your character. There was like you with your chest, your arms and legs, and then there was a worn armor layer, and then there's the enchantment layer, And once you realize that these are different layers that can be targeted separately, you think a little bit differently about the way the magic works.
I've never thought of it from that perspective, Sid. I like that.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting
It's
take
layered.
on it. Of course, warriors have layers like an onion.
I am the
How
onion.
did I not see it before?
I really like that, Sid.
I thought like everybody got that, because it's not like it's all mixed together. I mean, you can you can target enchantments, you can target your armor specifically. Like there's um, corrosive mist literally just targets the armor, and then you can target limbs, separately, like see what wounding, I mean that'll trigger AA, but if you're wearing armor, it goes right through it.
Yeah. Yeah, like wounding won't trigger AA, you're right, but whew, yeah, I'd never thought of the layers.
Yeah. It's like you've got like a like a spiritual layer and a armor layer and a bone or flesh and bone layer.
Turtles.
Totally.
Turtle.
Oh yeah. Every day I'd be turtling.
Yeah, so circling back to give you guys rulebook support for this, the phase bolt, phase arrow interaction, you want Common Misconception 6 on page 69 of the rulebook, where it expressly states that, yeah, phase ignores the enchantment, what Sid is calling the spiritual layer, and I'm probably going to start stealing that,
Cool.
and it interacts directly with the armor layer. So if you see that gray out there, be careful.
So essentially, if your armor is at 3 points or less, it'd be a good idea to sack a shield on it.
Well, since these things don't do, or since phase arrow and phase bolt don't do anything to shields, stick your shield in front of them anyway.
Oh, I thought they destroyed shields.
Nope. The only arrow that destroys shields is destruction arrow, and which, if you've got a hardened shield, stick your shield in front of it. Otherwise, open up, take it on your armor, and just lose the 1 point for ancestral.
So essentially, if you have a shield, the only thing you want to let through is anything that entangles or does engulfing effects.
Yeah, stuff that does engulfing effects are the big things.
Ice ball, entangle.
I made that goof so bad. It's like I get used to like blocking stuff with a shield, and I've got AA going, and I'm telling myself, if you see the browns, if you see the whites, catch it on your chest, and I'll goof up every time, and I'll end up being engulfed by a frozen. That is easy to see.
The ability I find myself using this against the most is either pinning arrow or lightning bolt. I don't know why. I just seem to come up against those two a lot.
I interact most with ice ball, which is where I'm usually seeing my ancestral armor save me from dealing with.
Oh, ice is definitely the more annoying of those.
Can be a welcome 60-second break, though.
That gives you the opportunity to chill.
I have found, as the thicker of folks, that I do enjoy a little bit of a break, standing there practically invulnerable, 3-foot wide wall, standing in the middle of a bridge. Yeah, freeze me.
As long as they don't have a shatter.
Right. Or some prick with release. Jeez.
You mean like almost every caster ever?
Oh my god. Well, yeah, the qualifier there is they have to be a prick about it.
Fair enough. At our most recent Kingdom event, IG released Regan out of, I think he had been frozen due to Phoenix Tears. IG released him out of that and stabbed him in one of the gaps in his armor just as he came out.
Oh.
Which probably was really unfair since I'm the person who built his armor. I knew exactly where the gaps were.
Never fight your armor on the field.
Yeah. This is why you want to learn your armoring skill.
Sorry about that. You just did the exact thing that everyone ever says to a person in armor, where like, I'm going to stab you where you don't have armor. And now it's always like, I'll be I'll be impressed when that happens. And you actually did it. I'm impressed.
My first suit had slits up the sides because I didn't really know how to sew at that point.
Yep, same.
And somebody asked, "Well, what are you going to do if I hit you in the side pocket there?" Buy you a beer. I had to buy 2 beers over the 3 years I wore that suit.
And you would think that the slits down the side wouldn't be that big a deal, but some guys that get those wraps, you know, they're not they're not going for the side of your arm anymore. They're going for that slot right under the elbow that gets right into the rib cage.
People talk about gaps in armor all the time like they're a huge target, but especially if you keep moving, they are a lot harder to hit than people think.
Gambison.
Oh yeah.
Gambison means no openings.
Well, I don't think my very, very first armor would have qualified as a gambus, and it was an armored poncho. Like you see in some of the like the westerns that the Mexicans wear. They got those big ponchos going. This thing was a quilt that just tied together on the side. It was level 1, 2 months in MacGyvering together some armor. I tell you what, man, when you're a big dude, those gaps are bigger, and if you're not on your stuff, they will find those holes. Ugh.
My first armor was basically a sleeved tabard that I stitched probably 2,000 steel rings down to.
Ow.
In V7, it was 2 or arguably 3 points, and I actually had one guy rated at 4. Really should not have, but hey, I'll take it. And that armor is actually still being used. Not by me, because I've upgraded, but I built that, started it summer of 2006, finished it summer of 2007.
Wow. I love hand-me-down armor stories.
Really good one you might enjoy then, Sid.
Oh, yeah. Oh, go ahead. I love these.
So, a guy named Duranir used to be apprenticed to me, and then he ended up leaving the game for personal reasons. I had given him a breastplate that I made for him. I was working on the rest of his armor, but I'd gotten the breast and back plates done, gave him that part. And then he leaves the game.
Oh.
4 years later, haven't heard from him that entire time. And somebody from his old park was like, "Yeah, I've got this breastplate that I got. Would you mind taking a look at it and helping me see if I can, fit it to me?"
Oh.
So, dude brings this suit of armor, or this breast and back plate up. And the moment he opens his trunk, I recognize it as the piece I had built for Duranir all those years before.
It's like that meme, like you're just as beautiful as the day I lost you.
We were talking about that series yesterday.
Well, the hand-me-down armor thing. It's. I actually think it fits into this particular episode pretty well because I'm the guild master of warriors for Dragon's Hollow, and one of those nifty little responsibilities as guild master is helping your little warriors get into their gear, And I've got this, that old gambeson of mine, and I'm like, hey, here you go. Make sure you take this off between games. It's 5 ply of thick fabric. You're going to need to catch your breath and shed the heat. It's an important part of spreading the purple.
Helping people get that starter armor is one of the toughest things for folks to do, but it's so important.
And as somebody that received some of that starter armor, like this one guy had this like really basic looking, like it was a steel bracer, right? And man, that thing was responsible for one of the most exciting moments I've ever had in Amp-Guard. You know, I mean, yeah, being on the receiving side of that, it's a really good feel.
Go ahead and tell that story.
Oh, I wonder if you guys have heard this before. We were moving a box across the field. You had to have 4 hands on it. And at this point in my journey, I didn't realize that you could drop your weapons on the thing you were carrying. So when me and this healer encountered a squad of guys, well, the first thing they did was took out the healer with a projectile. And I'm big. I'm slow. I don't run as a matter of principle. What am I going to do? Die out of breath? So I turn on these guys, and I've got my big white carpet going, and I've got the bracer on one arm, and I've got this another little bit of quilt that I'd made for the other arm, and this uh, nifty little skirt that I'd made out of a couple of layers of blue jean that I'd put together. And I'm like, all right, I got a couple of guys coming back for this thing. You guys take your time killing me. And they started coming at it, and I was like, ting, 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 doing the Wonder Woman bit with the steel bracer. And this one little kid, he's in there, he's like, oh my god, where do you hit him? And this other guy's like, everywhere. And then, yeah, they just collapsed in on me, and boy, they just killed the crap out of me. And that was the day that Sid stood off against like 6 dudes.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is a great warrior story.
that was like my Neo moment, you know. Bop, 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 bop. Yeah. That was just like one steel bracer, you know. I managed to make enough time for my guys to get back to that box with one bit of steel, you know.
And that plate bracer, that's a lot of points.
Yeah, yeah. You know, if they're hucking magic at you and you've got AA on that, yeah. Even if you can't like just kit up head to toe, even if you've got anything, it still works.
I mean, you've got some really neat lightweight leather gloves, don't you?
Oh yeah, my Mage Masher mitts. I literally made these for um, dealing with spell balls, so that I could kind of mock the monk's spell ball block. So um, I just took some like they're $20 MMA gloves and some Velcro, and used the Velcro adhesive to stick this these leather pieces that I'd cut out to match the gloves onto the gloves. And because the leather is like the right gauge for armor, the gloves only really count as um, the mechanism that's used to attach the armor. So I've got these like little 1 point leather gloves that I use to like catch spell balls. You know, terribly effective. Saves my weapon. Um, yeah, because you got these guys that'll throw a force bolt at you, and a hit to hand is a hit to weapon. If you've got a sword in it, you know. So if you've got that point of armor on your hand, that force bolt's going to contact the the armor. That lightning bolt's going to contact the armor. And I think I got the material, the leather I got for these was from um, it's upholstery leather that I got that from. So, you know, super super cheap.
Right. I've actually got like 3 Walmart bags full of upholstery leather in the garage that I need to make somebody armor out of.
Wow, nice.
From a couch that my fiance scavenged and pulled apart for me.
Bravo. I got a couch and several bags too. I really need to get off my ass.
This was a side of the road couch. If you pay attention on the roads, you can find a lot of leather that's just lying out there waiting to be thrown out. It's not great leather.
Oh no. And there's usually enough of it that if it's been sitting out, like sometimes it'll mildew, and there's usually enough of it that you can still get plenty from it. You just gotta trim it up.
I mean, heck, there are even ways to clean it.
Okay.
I've got a tin of saddle soap on one of my shelves. And yeah, it takes forever to clean mildew off with it, but you can do it.
Well, if you're gonna be in the armor game anyway, you're gonna want to learn how to take care of your material. I mean, that just sounds like, you know, something you'd have to learn anyway.
And yeah, you're depending on your gear, you ought to take care of it. Wow, we have strayed from Ancestral.
Well, no, not really, because like your Ancestral Armor, they talk about how it's like, oh, well, you want to have like the 6-point gear because it's terribly effective. And yes, absolutely, 100% agree. But you still get that one spell ball bounce from a pair of mitts that you've made from the hide of a couch that you've gloriously slain and captured on the side of a road. I mean, it's anytime you're talking about armor or anything that affects armor, you know, um, if you look on Amazon, you're talking about plenty of money going on it. But with like a couple of nifty skills and some crafty scavenging, you can put your stuff together for a lot less. I mean, yeah, it's 1 or 2 points, but man, the look on somebody's face when you ricochet a force bolt and keep coming, it's worth it.
Oh god, there are so many times I've bounced, taking an arrow to the chest, like a pinning arrow, and just like point Ancestral.
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
The look on their faces when you keep coming.
oh yeah. And if you manage to get that roar in there, oh, it's like the guy was saying, man. You managed to get him to move a foot, you got him.
Throw them off that little bit, buy yourself time, and you can start making good trades.
Oh yeah.
So talking about these mage crusher, mage smacker gloves, I had talked to Avi about this before because I'm not personally in favor of wearing metal gauntlets in Amtgard. So I was thinking, like, what
Yeah.
if I made leather gloves or something like that? And he was talking about, like, that would bring down your armor value because it's now averaging with the lower value of your hand as opposed to it being metal.
That's a
If you're
really
not
good point.
going, like, so Sid, I know you're not going for the high, like, maxing out your armor value at this time, but I do think it's something to consider, like, where do you trade off for when you're going to higher armor values? Because personally, when I'm running my AA, I just try to either do a bait and switch with my shield or my weapon, or just kind of dodge.
Oh yeah. Because like your hand is what, 20% of your arm?
It would depend on how you divide it up. I would, yeah, like 20% of your arm.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The mage measurements, yeah, if you're rocking steel on your forearm, or you've got the chainmail sleeve going, or you even got some kind of a shoulder pauldron that's giving you protection to that. Yeah, I could see how that would work to your disadvantage. because you don't want to make those with metal, because every once in a while you will punch block somebody's punch block, and that would break my heart. Just decking somebody in the hand with a the edge of that metal. There'd be no way they wouldn't come away with that bleeding. Even if you went to like rounded the edges and all that, it would split them open.
Yeah, and so while I think for lower armor kits, these Mage Master mitts are definitely a really good idea in my mind.
Oh yeah, totally agree. Good point. Gonna have to take that into consideration.
Well, if you're going for the high value kits and you can get some creative averaging in there. I forget the exact values, but all you have to do to get 6 points is hit 5.5 and then it rounds up. So if you're sitting at 6 on 80%, that's 4.8 points right there. And then assuming you build your Master Mitts up to, say, a 3 using thicker leather,
Right.
or several layers of leather, that's a 0.6. It's 5.4. You're still at 5. You're not at 6. But depending on enchantment selection and a couple other things, you can still get there.
That's good to know, because you would almost be swapping 1 point for that technique, But it's like, if you can get to where you can block it with your forearm or something, I mean, that's 1 point back,
Sacking a point to be able to mimic Monk's 6th level ability is not a bad thing.
Oh yeah. Oh, I ran into something goofy the other day. I was talking to Rek, who's a Paragon Barbarian, and he was talking about how your monks are the guys that are supposed to be able to handle your casters, because they've got the Enlightened Soul and they've got the missile ball block. They're the ones that are supposed to be like harassing the casters, keeping their attention, while you deal with the guys that are like weaponized offensively. So, and that's where he comes from. That's what they do. But I don't really see a lot of that here at Dragon's Hollow. So I've got like myself kind of built up mentally to like handle, uh, like soaking stuff up from casters. You know what I mean? I see somebody out there doing the freeze thing. I'm like, all right, cool. Hey, right here, buddy. Insult. You know. So you're gonna get you're gonna get a different development depending on where you come from with that. I wonder how that affects Ancestral Armor.
Ancestral Armor is a great anti-caster tool, assuming they don't dispel you or just switch over to verbaling you. But in terms of monks being anti-caster, yeah, that's true on paper, but I've not really seen it in practice.
Yeah, what the intended design of a lot of things does not often reflect its practical use. And another thing we need to think about when we're talking about are how we no longer become targets for spell balls is that we're usually not going to be existing in a vacuum. So we got to think, like, if they're going to throw spell balls at us, are they either going to react to us because we're now a stronger threat, or are they going to start throwing their spell balls at other people? And how do we go from there once we start an engagement? But that's definitely going to be, it depends on the who we're attacking type thing.
Right. When you've made yourself unkillable, people will ignore you, and that's what you have insult for. Even if they're not actively attacking you, you can pull them off of your teammates. If you recall from the insult episode, if you insult someone, they don't have to actively fight you, but they can't actively fight anybody else either.
That counts as a nifty combo for Ancestral Armor. If you've got
Yeah.
somebody like a Spellball Wizard doing, like, what, Elemental Barrage?
Yeah, if they're popping Elemental Barrage, they're probably not going to spend too much time on you because they've only got 3 or 4 balls that can actually affect you. I forget what the maximum number of phases they can carry is, but their SOAs, their phases, that's it. So they're going to be hucking them at your teammates probably.
But even then, like we're talking about casting Insult in conjunction with Ancestral, that becomes a very strong, you're now engaging on my terms engagement, especially against a more ball heavy wizard or other caster. At least I think it is.
Yeah, you're now dictating the terms of the fight. That may not be exactly how you want to fight, but that's still a win for you.
Yeah, it may not go how I want. It may not be exactly how I want, but it's definitely not how they want.
Well, you're taking an asset that would be offensively effective elsewhere and pulling it into a situation where it's offensively ineffective. You know, I mean, you do the same thing in Pokemon all the time.
You're now making them play to your strength rather than letting them play to theirs. You're throwing off their game, you're throwing off their tempo. And that's a valuable thing.
That's an interesting combo.
I gotta get going. This has been a very fun episode to talk about, and I'll see y'all in the next one.
Hey, yeah.
Catch you later,
Thanks, man.
Brawler.
Always a
Bye.
pleasure.
Ren, you've been kind of quiet. You got anything you want to add?
Oh, not really. I've just been kind of absorbing everything because, since I'm only level 5, I don't have the use of Ancestral yet. Excuse me. So, trying to get the concept into my mind on, spell balls, like Sid said, I'm so used to just blocking them or getting out of their way that absorbing them on armor is going to be a thought process for me.
It is. It's a whole change of gear.
Yeah. And I was essentially listening to it. And I guess the downfalls of Ancestral is, casters who are good will know that their spell balls are worthless against you. So you essentially make yourself a target for that Finger of Death or, that smite spell that just kills you immediately. So what would be your next step other than Golem to try and prevent that? Enlightened Soul?
E-Soul's a good choice. Pro-Mag is a double-edged sword. But the big thing is, honestly, at that point for me, is tactics.
Yeah, just good stick fighting, put yourself in good places.
Putting yourself in good places, knowing when to watch for an opening.
Most verbals are only 20 feet, correct?
Correct.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So essentially, if somebody starts casting a verbal and you know you're going to die anyway, might as well try and charge them or, use one of our previous podcasts where we talked about javelins, eat it before they heat it.
Oh, yeah.
Get that javelin in there and make them move their feet, make them miscast.
Which
Or
I
even if
once to
even
you,
if
Avi.
you do, they might get that cast off before the javelin hits them, but the javelin's still going to hit them because they're still standing in one place. Definitely give that a toss.
And if they're burning a per refresh verbal on you, that's a good trade. If they're burning something that's rechargeable, like Dragged Below, probably a break even at best. Especially if you've got AA up and you lose your AA to that. Because remember, you've only got 3 of them per refresh.
I will say
They are a...
Go ahead, Avi.
I was going to say they are a short-term boost, not a long-term sustainable thing unless you're actively going for it.
I will say the few seconds at least that the caster will be, standing off to the side recharging something is also worth it as well because most people can't auction ramble off their recharge like you can, Avi.
Yeah, that's from way too much time playing Necro Priest, though.
It still keeps them out of the field casting other balls and spell balls and stuff like that if they're standing at their spawn and recharging. We get back into the game much faster in comparison to a lot of the people we kill.
Yeah. I don't gotta work too hard to recharge my short sword.
No, you don't. The only thing we've got natively that's chargeable is Shake It Off. So
And that's another reason why Rec always kind of giggles about this, but I tell all of my little warriors that warrior is the most magical class. And I get that this is bullshit, but the idea is that, I mean, we'll talk about spells that we have like no domain over. We got to know that magic. I mean, just drag below, you have like three different interactions there that you have to deal with. You've been stopped somehow. You're fixing to get a cast off at you somehow. You're stopped, not stunned. You can do something about it. And then, well, what happened? Did you have AA up? Did you absorb the spell ball? Did somebody get you with a verbal? Yeah. Magic, magic, magic.
I mean, one of the things we keep saying is learn the magic system. If for no other reason than you are going to be the target of so much of it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I need to get him on here. He thinks that's funny.
On the surface level, I did it first too, and then I kind of thought about it a little more deeply and like, wait a tick. Yeah, in terms of what we get targeted by,
Yeah.
it's just another way of saying learn the magic system.
Yeah. You would think that that would be something basic that everybody would want to get into. You would want everybody to learn the magic. That would be something super basic that, you're maybe not a veteran, but on the way to being there, Amp Guard player would do. But from day one, Warrior has access to the majority of his abilities and tactics. We've got all our melee, large shield, all of our armor is equipable, and the abilities come later, but the martial discipline is what makes the difference between being able to use those abilities effectively. So from day one, we're out there eating a machine gun sandwich, grinning ear to ear about it. Learn your magic.
This is kind of personal opinion and kind of a problem I see with Amp Guard culture overall. So often we'll steer newbies towards warrior or
Oh no,
monk
I know. I
or
hate that.
barbarian, and I've been guilty of it myself in the past, but the more I think on it, the more I think that wizard is probably the best starter class.
That's entirely possible. Yeah, or maybe
Wizard, maybe healer.
yeah,
Let's get used to the magic system. You can improve your stick fighting as you go because you won't have to do as
yeah.
much of it. You learn the magic system.
And they're not nearly as gear dependent.
No,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Warrior's level 6 ability doesn't function if you don't have worn armor.
And if it's your first day on the field, well, you're not gonna have armor. But by the time you get there, you should. Oops, that didn't really apply. Yeah, I tell all the newbies, and I don't think anybody likes this, but I tell all the newbies run peasant so that you can see what's happening. And then after your first day of only having a short sword or a dagger, you can make the decision on which path you want to go on. You don't have to have a sash, you don't have to have the gear. We've got the loners for you. You've seen what we do here. Do you want to cast? Do you want to stab? Where do you want to be on the field? And then at the same time, they get that exposure to the magic because they don't have an enlightened soul. You know, um, I don't know what the barbarian trait is for
Immunity to command and subdual.
yeah, that it's not like a trait. It's just
Yeah, no,
a
those are just
immunity.
passive traits that you've got. You're immune to
Yeah,
those two schools of magic.
yeah, yeah. You get the exposure to all of it, and then you decide. But like nobody likes that because they're like, well, you got a guy out here. It's his first time. You want him to have what special abilities that he can't use?
And there are merits to that approach. Like I said, I try to push them towards wizard and give them an easy list. My power shoves thee is a really easy enchantment or incantation to learn.
Yeah, I think some of them like get a kick out of that.
And shove can also be an incredibly annoying incantation or spell to deal with.
Yeah.
I know I've talked in the past about getting chased all over the field at Gotsy.
Especially if you're in 80 pounds of gear and you got to move 20 feet away from somebody consistently.
Just freeze
Yep.
me. Just freeze me, man. Just freeze me. Come on. Just, you don't gotta knock a dude around. Okay, you cast it and then run off 20 feet. I'm tired.
I was very worn out that day.
I know this guy that came up with a list that he called cardio. For that reason, it was just moving people around and wow.
Incidentally, that day was also one of the few times where someone has managed to hit one of the gaps in my armor cleanly.
Oof.
I was fighting like 4 people in melee, 2 or 3 archers. One of the archers pings a pinning arrow off of my shield. And this kid, who couldn't have been more than 16, about as big around as my wrist,
Oh.
sprints towards me, baseball slides between my legs, and stabs straight up under my chain shirt.
Oh my god. Yeah, I have heard this one before. I didn't realize. Ooh. Wow.
It came down like a ton of bricks and almost landed on him.
Oh god. That's like something I'm like super afraid of. Landing on somebody. Stay safe, kids. Don't be under me. Oof.
Gravity is not your friend.
No. No, it's not.
I do give that kid mad props for pulling that off, though.
Oh yeah. Definitely. I mean, caught a dude in a situation and then did the thing. Bravo. Oh man. Well, hey, we starting to get it together over here. I gotta head out. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. On that note, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up.
All right.
Alrighty.
Our next episode is going to be an interview with Juicy out of the Rising Winds, another Paragon warrior.
Do they do a thing? Like, are they specialized or?
Honestly, I don't know, but getting another Paragon on here to give us some more perspectives, so.
Yeah. So where's you said the Rising
Winds. That's
Rising?
like
that?
Ohio.
Oh wow.
That's like Ohio, Indiana, part of Illinois.
Well, I wonder. I've always wondered about the fighters up north. Because something I noticed about even wearing like quilt is even when you're running during the cold, you still end up peeling off your underlayer because you're just soaked. I've always wondered what those guys do about you know hydration and stamina on the field if they do anything different.
You'll have to ask him when he comes on.
Right? Looking forward to it.
All right, and on that note, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Boop.